Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and we're back with another monthly wrap-up. Today we're going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of May. A couple things before I get into today's video. One, I'm sorry this video has come out a little bit late. This past week has been very hectic for me. I had a wedding that I was in, there was a lot going on. So if you're here, thank you for being very patient with me and understanding. I really appreciate it. Also, a lot of these books that I'm going to be talking about today were actually a part of a couple reading vlogs that came out already. I'm not going to talk about them quite as much as I would a normal monthly wrap-up, just because those reading vlogs have more of my full extensive thoughts. Extensive? Is that the right word? I don't really know. More of like all of my thoughts, reactions, all of that you can find in those reading vlogs. With all of that said, let's get into what we read in the month of May. Okay, I can't quite remember the books that were on the TBR that I picked. I ended up picking 6 books, and out of those 6 books, I read 4. I feel like that's not too bad. I am very proud of myself for sticking to my TBR for the most part. And without further ado, let's get into the first book we read in the month of May. The first book we're going to be talking about today is Powerful by Lauren Roberts. If you guys don't know who Lauren Roberts is, if you can hear my neighbor's dog, I'm sorry, please ignore it. The show must go on. Powerful is the little novella to Powerless, which is the first book in, I'm not sure what the name of the trilogy is yet, but if you haven't read Powerless, what are you doing? This novella is about Adina, and she's a side character in the first book, and then she gets her own little romance, her own little book in this one. Obviously, we're not going to include spoilers. This is spoiler free, but because of something that happens in the first book in Powerless, I didn't think I was going to be able to get emotionally invested into these characters, into this story, because of how Powerless ended. If you know, you know. But I was proven wrong. This one was a part of my most anticipated releases reading vlog, so if you want my more raw reactions and more of my thoughts on this, go over and watch that vlog because you get to see much more of my thoughts on it. I ended up giving this one a 4-star. I actually really loved it. The romance was really good. Lauren Roberts' writing, she amazes me every time, and I am so excited for Ruthless to come out. It's less than a month now. I'm so excited. I cannot wait. I do want to do a little reread of Powerless before I read Ruthless. I'm just obsessed with this world, with this universe that Lauren Roberts has created, and I cannot wait to read all the other books by her. I'm seriously so excited. Then we have Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. This duology, if you will. How do I say this? It was very hyped up on the TikTok, on BookTube, in the whole book universe. This was all of the hype when it came out. It took me quite a while to actually finally pick up this book. I think all of the hype around it kind of ruined it for me. I don't want to say ruined it because I did enjoy reading it, but I think because it was so hyped up, my expectations were very high when reading this duology. The first book, which was Divine Rivals, I gave a 3-star. I had a good time. I enjoyed reading it, but I didn't feel super passionately about the characters or about the world. I kind of just felt indifferent. I was like, oh, that was good. Moving on. I didn't really think about it much further. And I already had the second book on my physical TBR, and I knew if I didn't read it sometime soon, it was just going to sit there and I was never going to read it. I actually read this in another reading vlog, which was reading books that I've been avoiding. This was in there, so again, if you want to see my raw reactions and my full thoughts to the fullest extent, go over and watch that video. But I ended up giving this a 3.5-star. I did do this one on audiobook, and then I did Divine Rivals just reading it as a physical book. I actually think I liked that quite a bit more. I feel like it was able to hold my attention better. I think a big part of it is that I'm not a huge cozy fantasy girl. I feel like I read more high stakes fantasy, kind of just in the middle, like I said. I had a good time, I liked it, I enjoyed it, but do I think I'm going to think about this further? No. Have I thought about it since I read it? No. Am I glad I read it? Yes. And I would still recommend this to anybody who likes cozier fantasies, not as high stakes. I would still recommend this book or this duology. I just don't think it was my vibe. I see the potential there and I see why people liked it. I just don't think it was for me. Next up we have Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This was my first ever Abby Jimenez book, and can I just say, I am blown away by her. Her writing was so beautiful. Yeah. I don't know how this was my first book by her. I have heard so many things about her and I have seen her books everywhere and I've always wanted to pick them up, but for some reason this one finally caught my attention enough to pick it up, and I will be forever grateful. Now I am going to be going down an Abby Jimenez rabbit hole because I loved this book so much. This was also a part of my reading my most anticipated releases video. This might be a bold statement, but I think this might be one of my favorite books that I've read so far this year, and I think it'll be one of my favorites of the whole year of 2024. This book was so good. Not only was the romance perfect and her writing perfect, there were so many other deeper topics like family traumas, things like that. She just did an amazing job writing, and I feel like she did it justice. She didn't romanticize the trauma that was happening. I feel like she did such a good job of having both, keeping them kind of separate, but also making the story cohesive, if that makes sense. Her writing was just, it was so good. I bet you already guessed it, but I gave this book a 5-star. I just absolutely fell in love with this book and these characters and the atmosphere, and just everything about this book was literally perfect. So if you haven't read this book, you need to go read it. You need to pick it up immediately. I still haven't read any of her other books, so please comment down below which ones I should read first. I need help. There's so many that I want to read, so please comment down below which one is your favorite if you've read them. I literally have been thinking about this book every day since I finished it, and that is how you know it's a 5-star. Then we have Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. This is just the cutest little short cowboy romance. It was so refreshing for me. I felt like after I read Just for the Summer, I was a little nervous about reading another romance just because I felt like it wouldn't compare to what I had just read. And this was the perfect palate cleanser. It's short, it's sweet, but it doesn't feel like it's rushed at the same time. It just felt the perfect length. And the romance was done so well. I loved these characters. I loved them together. It went by so fast, but in the best way. I just felt like everything about this book I really, really loved. I ended up giving this one a 4-star. I just thoroughly enjoyed myself when I read it. It's always nice to have a short, quick read for the beach, for going outside, for a picnic day. It's always fun to have a good, just cutesy little romance. Everybody loves a cutesy little romance, okay? And especially a cowboy romance. I've seriously been in my cowboy romance era, and I'm loving it, and I'm here to stay, okay? The last book we read this month was The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. Let me just tell you, I was very surprised by this book. I am not really a general fiction, literary fiction girly. I usually stick to my romance and my fantasy and a little bit of mystery thriller here and there, but I had heard so many amazing things about this book. If you guys don't know, I work at a bookstore, and I'm not kidding, every single customer that I had talked to hyped up this book and talked so highly of this book that I had to read it. I ended up actually getting this book for Christmas. It had kind of just been sitting there on my TBR cart, and I knew that if I didn't pick it up sooner or later, then I was never gonna read it. If you guys don't know what this is about Lucy, and she's a teacher's aide, and she essentially is trying to adopt this student that she has. His name's Christopher. She's a teacher's aide, she doesn't have enough money for that. And then, years and years and years after being retired, both of their favorite children's author comes out saying he's going to write another book for this famous series that he has. I kind of imagine the series as like a Magic Tree House or a Narnia or a Percy Jackson. Like, he's the author of like a very famous series, and he announces that he's only writing one copy, and he's having this sort of competition to try to win this one copy. And of course she's going to try to win it so that she can get it and essentially get enough money to adopt Christopher. The dedication literally says, "This book is dedicated to Charlie and to all of us who are still looking for our golden tickets." And that's just exactly the vibe that this book gives. It gives very much Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Willy Wonka. There's not actual magic in this book, but the way it's written is just, it feels magical. This book was so wholesome, and towards the end there, I literally was crying happy tears. I don't think I've ever cried happy tears for a book before. I ended up giving this book a 5-star, which I was not expecting at all. I did read this one for the books I had been avoiding reading vlog, so I was very pleasantly surprised that this book ended up being a 5-star. And if you don't read a lot of literary fiction or general fiction like me, I highly suggest you try reading this book. And here are all the books that we read in the month of May. I ended up reading 5 books, which is pretty good for me. Usually I range around 4 books, and it's been my goal to read 6 books, so we kind of landed right in the middle there. I always say this, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. So if you ever feel like you're not reading enough books in a month, don't feel that way, because I always get really hard on myself. It's okay to not read like 14 books in a month. I wanted to thank you guys so much for watching and supporting my channel. We just hit 1,000 subscribers. You have no idea how much this means to me. 10-year-old me is literally screaming. I thought I would never even get 10 subscribers, and here we are. Thank you guys so much for watching my videos and liking and subscribing and commenting. You have no idea how much it means to me. I hope you guys enjoyed watching today's video. Please comment down below other videos you want to see from me, other content you want to see me making, and I will see you in my next video.